Bonjour, bienvenue à notre rendez-vous quotidien pour la presse en ligne et en direct sur EBS. Nous sommes aujourd'hui le jeudi 27 mai. Pour commencer, une petite mise à jour à l'agenda de la présidente von der Leyen. Cet après-midi, Madame von der Leyen s'entretiendra par téléphone avec le président de l'Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. Je passe maintenant la parole à Viviane, qui a une annonce sur un projet dans le domaine de la politique régionale. Ah, pas d'audio de nouveau. Attends. Nous semblons avoir un petit problème avec l'audio. Donc nous allons, pour ne pas perdre de temps, nous allons procéder comme d'habitude. Merci de choisir le canal français-anglais. Ah, ça marche, on dit. Ok, très bien. Ça remarche, Flo? Ok, donc voilà, le problème semble être réglé. Viviane, tu peux y aller.
On essaye. Good afternoon. So the Commission has approved today a major investment for a total of 216 million euros from the Cohesion Fund to modernize Bucharest's thermal energy transmission system, one of the largest in the world. This project will help to remedy the current problem of the loss of heat between the source and the consumer. It will increase the energy efficiency of the network and bring better air quality thanks to a substantial reduction in fuel use. Overall, it will contribute to Romania's goals of reducing its greenhouse gas emissions in line with the European Green Deal and its climate targets. More information, as always, on these investments in the Open Data Platform and in our today's daily news. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Viviane. Then allow me to remind you of the council meetings taking place today, all of which are taking place in a physical format. Today is the second day of the Agriculture and Fisheries Council. Commissioners Janusz Wojciechowski and Virginijus Sienkiewicz are there on behalf of the Commission. Ministers will continue their discussion on the reform of the Common Agricultural Policy. The Commission will also present the action plan on organic farming adopted by the Commission at the end of March. And there will be a discussion on how to support the agricultural sectors affected by recent frosts in several member states. A press conference is foreseen at the end of the meeting and Commissioner Wojciechowski will participate. Ensuite, un conseil compétitivité a lieu aujourd'hui et demain. Et la Commission y sera représentée par les vice-présidents exécutifs Valdis Dombrovskis et Margrethe Vestager, ainsi que le commissaire Thierry Breton. Aujourd'hui, les ministres discuteront du marché intérieur, de la mise à jour de la stratégie industrielle qui a été adoptée par la Commission un peu plus tôt ce mois-ci, ainsi que du paquet de services numériques. La Commission présentera aussi ses propositions dans le domaine de l'intelligence artificielle, des distorsions liées aux subventions de pays tiers, ainsi que la revue de la politique commerciale. Une conférence de presse est prévue aux alentours de 6 heures ce soir, et c'est le commissaire Breton qui y participera. Finally, an informal meeting of EU foreign ministers, or GIMNIC, is taking place today in Lisbon. This meeting is hosted by the Portuguese presidency of the Council and chaired by High Representative Vice President Josep Borrell. Commissioners Oliver Vahey and Jutta Urpilainen will also participate. The main items on the agenda for this meeting are EU-Africa relations, the unresolved conflicts in the Eastern neighborhood, and the EU's Indo-Pacific strategy. The ministers will also discuss the follow-up to the decisions taken by the European Council earlier this week regarding Belarus and the Ryanair flight. A press conference with the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Portugal, Augusto Santos Silva, and the HRVP Borrell will be held after the meeting around 6 p.m. Brussels time. So as usual for all these different council formations where press conferences are foreseen, we would ask you to address your questions to those press conferences rather than today during the midday. That's it for announcements today. We are now ready to take your questions. And I go to Nicola Wells.
Thank you. Now, this is Nicholas Wallace for Science Magazine. Now that Switzerland has announced that it's withdrawing from talks on the Institutional Framework Agreement, is the Commission now willing or unwilling to negotiate Swiss association to the Horizon Europe program? Thanks.
Thank you, Nicolas. The decision by the Swiss authorities yesterday has no immediate impact on this issue. We have made it clear here on a certain number of occasions that in any case, before the EU would consider a Swiss application to the Horizon Europe research program, a certain number of conditions had to be met. One of them, which applies actually to all third countries or most third countries, is that an overall agreement on the participation of the country, in this case Switzerland, to EU programs in general under the new multi-annual financial framework has to be made. And secondly, in the case of Switzerland specifically, we have always said that a precondition is that Switzerland pays the contribution that is foreseen for cohesion policy, and that is actually the sort of agreement that was reached in view of its participation in the single market for the period, for the previous period of the financial framework. So these two conditions need to be met. And then, of course, we have always said, and this is where perhaps yesterday's decision does have an impact, that we would review a Swiss application to participation in EU programs, and in particular in the research program, in light of our overall relationship with Switzerland. Nicolas, you have a follow-up?
Can I have a... Yes, please. So can I infer from what you just said that that doesn't rule out negotiations on Horizon Europe, but it does mean there would need to be broader talks on Swiss access to the MFF in the absence of the institutional framework agreement?
Well, this is actually a regulatory condition in the new financial framework, that participation of third countries depends on the fact that there is an overall agreement on their participation in MFF programs in general. It's not about basically doing negotiations on one specific program or another. There's no sort of individual negotiations. You have to define an overall framework for participation in EU programs, and within that context then participation to the specific program, in this case Horizon Europe. So nothing excluded, but of course it is clear that we are going to assess Swiss potential requests to participation in light of the existing conditions, as I've just discussed, the payment of the cohesion contribution and the overall relationship with Switzerland. Isabelle.
Oui, c'est un follow-up en fait. Pardon, mais je ne comprends pas très bien. Du coup, ces négociations sur l'accord chapeau pour la participation au programme, est-ce qu'elles vont commencer? Elles ont commencé? Est-ce que avant de les commencer, vous allez faire cette revue à la lumière des relations? Parce que les MFF, les programmes, ils entrent en vigueur déjà maintenant, non? Enfin, je suis un peu perdue en fait sur les étapes et l'éventuel calendrier.
Je n'ai pas d'informations particulières sur un calendrier spécifique relatif à la Suisse, mais comme je te l'ai dit, comme je l'ai dit en réponse à la question précédente, il y a de toute manière des préalables en ce qui concerne la Suisse, et notamment le paiement de cette contribution cohésion. Donc je crois qu'il faut que nous prenions le temps. Comme nous l'avons dit hier, la première chose, c'est que nous allons analyser l'impact de la décision suisse d'hier de se retirer des négociations sur l'accord cadre institutionnel. Et nous allons, sur cette base-là, ensuite envisager les questions sectorielles au fur et à mesure qu'elles se présentent. Je ne vois pas d'autres questions pour nous sur la Suisse aujourd'hui. Y a-t-il d'autres sujets que vous souhaitez aborder avec nous aujourd'hui ? Je ne vois pas d'autres questions pour nous aujourd'hui. Je vous remercie de votre participation et donc nous nous reverrons demain. Merci beaucoup.